So tell me, Louis, where do you find the land? How do you go about finding a plot of land?
So you're living in Brussels right now.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you start your food forest? Ideally, what would you be looking for?
Goodness me, I would be looking for an existing green space or forest and somehow see if I could find something there. A bit like you would look for an allotment, you know, that's what I would do, because I would imagine that I couldn't do it around my home.
So would you want to live there full time, or would you still want to like live partially in Brussels?
Maybe for a bit live partially in Brussels, but then with a view to perhaps going there
later.
full time.
Yeah. So that's a big question. Eh? Do you want to live part time there, or do you want to live there full time? If you want to live there full time, then you have more options. Eh? Then you can go to the other side of the planet. So things to look at, it's the prices. For example, if you're in Belgium, in Flanders, you pay 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 120,000 euros for 1 hectare, which is around 2.5 acres, roughly. So if you go to France, you can buy a piece of land for 2,000 euros. So 2,000 euros, 100,000 euros.
Yeah, sure. Wow, that's nuts. But but also just in the same question, do I have to buy the land? Could I lease? Can you rent land? Can you lease land? How does that
Of course,
work?
we're not all privileged to have the money to buy land. Depending, of course, where we are, you can lease land. There are special contracts you can have to lease land until you're 65. But the thing is, the land you manage, it's like a depository of money. It's like your bank account, and your goal is to enrich your land.
Yes.
And so you're enriching it, planting trees, and a lot of people want to then leave it behind for their children. But if it's not on your land and you're kicked out when you're 65. So for example, I know a story of a guy who had a contract. He could live there until he was 100.
Right.
He was unlucky. He
lived till 103 or something.
He lived longer than 100 years old. Okay. So at this age of 100, his paradise, he got kicked out of his paradise. So it's horrible.
That's quite biblical, actually, to get kicked out of the Garden of Eden, is it not? That's actually something strange there.
Exactly.
Okay.
But you can do it.
Yep.
There are some things you have to be very cautious about the contract, about not being to be sure you're not going to be kicked out. That's the worst thing you can
also,
have.
isn't it, because you would have, I mean, I know you say it's sort of self-sustaining once you've done that initial work, but still it is a project over time, so it would be absolutely some not very fair rough justice if you find yourself at the end of this evolution kind of not there to see that.
Because it's it's something you build. It's like
So going on from where you would look, and even different countries and different prices, and do you lease? Do you buy? Tell me, how much of it, where I might get a plot of land, would depend on what I want to do with it? Because I talked water, I talked animals, I talked nuts. How much do I need to think about there?
Well, it's very important. If you're part of your DNA is what you want. What do you want to grow? For me, it's very simple. I'm addicted to walnut oil.
Okay.
I love it so much.
Do you need help with this addiction, or it's good, or it's under control?
It's still under control. I still don't have to go into rehab.
Okay.
Not yet. But so I love walnuts. For me, it's easy. If I start a huge project or even a small project, for me, that's going to be the basic of it. Walnuts. Where can you grow walnuts? You can actually grow them in a lot of places.
Right.
But if you want to grow bananas, for example.
Sorry, do you mean in levels, or do you mean country? When you say a lot of places, do you mean
countries. In a lot of countries.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you want to grow bananas, here you're unlucky. You have to wait 20 more years until the global warming has advanced. So bananas, you cannot grow them here. You can grow them in the south of Spain, or you can grow them on the Canary Islands, or in Africa, or other places in the world. So you really have to know what is your favorite fruit or nut or animal you want to grow. So that's an important thing. And also, how big do you want to go?
Yeah.
For example, 1 hectare or 2-3 acres might be enough for you, but you could also say, no, I really need 30 hectares, or I really need 100 acres. I have a big vision. Yeah. And then depending on your financial situation, okay, if you really want to go big, but your financial situation doesn't permit to buy it in Flanders, then you can, go to South America, for example. There you can buy an acre of land for the price of a pizza, for example.
Okay. What I hear, what I find interesting is that there's this real emotional component. You know, you said you need to be inspired. What's your DNA? What do you need? Are you solving a problem? And then there's this real considerations. You need to do some planning and thinking. Yeah. You said read some books, look at some demos, farms, areas, do your research. Do I buy? Do I lease? What size? So there is that whole aspect. All of that emotion has to be backed up with that work. And then you've got all of that. Well, you'll come to the design, I'm sure, the evolutionary, the point at which you're leaving, as you explained. You're not redoing stuff every year like you normally would. Yeah. So that's quite an interesting kind of combination there, if I want to do this project. Yeah,
and it's also, a lot of things coming together. You have to look at it holistically, to all different aspects, because they all play a role. But then the next thing we're going to talk about is you have to make a decision. Do you want to live off the land? Yeah. Or is it just for you to have a romantic place to rest? So that's also a huge decision you have to make, and that plays a role. If you say, okay, I'm going to make this huge investment, but I'm going to get some return on my investment, then you can maybe go bigger. But if you say, oh, it's just because I want to have a safe haven for myself, then you can. You wouldn't invest millions in it unless you have the money, of course.
But then, and so it comes back to this issue that we touched upon earlier about commercialization, which we're going to talk more about. Yeah, how can I live off that relationship that I have with the land effectively?
What a beautiful way of saying it.
Yeah.